Thank you so many for um, creating these slides for us. And also I express my great thank you to all of you who are attending for the past 3 classes, and today also you are so keen to attend this class. So I'm so thankful to you for your eagerness for knowing all these things. So today also we are trying to understand the first 1500 history of the Malankara Church. Okay, these days I come across with so many online platforms which fully negate the arrival of St. Thomas, fully negate the St. Thomas tradition. 2 days back, I got some of the WhatsApp messages or Facebook messages telling that it is a lie that was spread by the Malankara Christians and the so-called St. Thomas Christians, telling the lie that St. Thomas arrived in Kerala. So those types of controversy was there. So I want to make it clear that lot of researchers have already done regarding the nature and function of the St. Thomas Christians during this pre-Portuguese period or before the colonial period. Both the Catholic, Protestant historians and historians from the Marthoma Church all are in a consensus that a Christian community had existed in today's Kerala during this pre-Portuguese period, arrival of Protestant or Catholic missionaries. So why I am looming around this topic is that the aim of this class, that means the previous class as well as today's class, is that I want to make it sure that the identity of the Marthoma Church as an indigenous church. Indigenous means it took root in the indigenous context. Well, I say in the Kerala context. And when in the early part of 1st century to maybe 19th century, there is no Kerala there. Kerala was formed in only in 1956 after the constitution. India became a republic. Otherwise, it was split into many kingdoms, small kingdoms, Malabar, Travancore, Cochin, like that. No, but when we say Kerala, we had in mind all these places. The South Travancore, that is the Trivandrum area. Central Travancore, that is the Kottayam Tiruvalla area. Then Cochin, Ernakulam, then Malabar, the whole of Kasaragod and those areas. So when I use the term Kerala, it does not mean that Kerala was in existence the period which we are discussing these topics, but largely we have to use that term. Otherwise, it is very difficult to define things. So what I am in my reading and from my research on this area, I came to the conclusion that the gospel seed was free to grow in the Indian soil or the Kerala soil. Not only in India, when you read Acts of Apostles, then the letters of Paul, or in all those periods, there is a freedom to translate the gospel to individual, the indigenous cultures. there is a freedom. There was a freedom to take root of the gospel to indigenous culture. That is why we had a spectrum of Christianity all over the world. All over the world. Only the gospel has the power of translatability. Translatability means it has the ability to translate into any culture. Indian, Korean, Chinese, Burmese, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Europe. Only Bible has that ability. Other religions do not have that mobility. So we should always bear in mind when we talk about Christianity, the early spirit. So our research means including the historians, the church that was grown or that had been growing in today's what we call Kerala during the pre-Portuguese period was an indigenous church. Second, it is an autonomous church. That means it has its own leadership, administration was there, and there is no control from outside India or outside Kerala on the St. Thomas Christians. So please bear in mind these two things. The St. Thomas Christians were indigenous in character, as well as it was an autonomous church. Okay, now the spread of Christianity in two ways. The spread of Christianity in India and other places have generally had taken place through main two ways. The first is apostolic activities. For St. Thomas Christians, it is through St. Thomas. For the Western churches, Rome, basically Rome, it was in Rome, the Christianization was done by St. Peter. Then churches in Egypt, once upon a time, there are strong churches in Egypt. St. Mark went to Egypt. So if you search in the Google, you can see the apostolic activity. What are the churches they established or founded during their apostolic activity? So one way of spreading the gospel from Jerusalem, the Jesus movement, it spread from Jerusalem to all over the world as Jesus told the disciples. So for us, the spread of Christianity to India or Kerala came through St. Thomas, the activity of St. Thomas. The second wave came through Western missionary activities, both Protestant and Catholics. Both Protestant and Catholics. So in this, historical evidences show that Christianity existed in Kerala before the coming of the missionaries. There are people who claim that, or you may be misguided by the false statement that the spread of Christianity had taken place in India or in Kerala through the Western missionaries. Wrong. A wrong proposition, a wrong thesis. Before the arrival of whether Protestant missionaries or Catholic missionaries, a church was already there in Kerala. So historical research has shown that the gospel that was preached was not imposed on the natives along with Western culture. That means the Christ, Jesus, has the ability to take root into Indian soil. See, when the Westerners, I'm not questioning or I'm not condemning the Western missionaries. When they came, the Jesus Christ wear suit in pant Suit means coat and pant, you know. Jesus only speak English. Jesus is supposed to have the culture of a Western missionary. So there was a deliberate attempt to present Christ as a Western Christ. So when we go next class, I think I can elaborate that. So the whole point is that Jesus is presented as he is. It was not imposed on the native people. During this Western missionary movement, both Protestant and Catholic, they have a feeling that European culture was superior, and that is superior for all others. And what all they found in China, Korea, Asian countries, or Philippines, Thailand, they are inferior, superstitious. So that type of attitudes were there, unsympathetic to local cultures and religions. But it was not like that during the pre-Portuguese period. That is what I made it clear. It was, the gospel was not presented as a Western import. Then from the Portuguese onwards, that means from the 15th century onwards, all over the world, mission was intertwined with the colonialism. They conquered the land, both the Catholic and if it is a Dutch or from Portugal colonization or the British colonization, they imposed the Western culture. They imposed the colonialism. And what is the outcome? In India, the RSS people was propagating that Christianity is a Western religion, not belonging to India. So they will openly say that all Christians have to leave India to Europe. Their proposition, their thesis is that Christianity is a Western import. Wrong. It's a misreading. Why it is like that? Because during the period of the missionary movement, Christianity seemed as an invaders' religion. The invaders are, who are the invaders? The Europeans invaded, the Portuguese invaded India, the Dutch people invaded India, British people invaded India. These invaders are Christians. They imposed their religion, the so-called Christian religion, on Indian people forcibly. That is why after 1500, Christianity seemed like invaders' religion. Still, that type of thinking is there, unfortunately. So, though all missionaries were not colonial agents, the spread of Christianity at this period seemed as a colonial agenda. There are good missionaries are there who do not have this invading spirit or crusading spirit. Okay, I stop over there. So mission also was in colonialism. Then we are coming to arrival of St. Thomas. So the St. Thomas tradition, again two, three words. It is an identity, an awareness kept by the St. Thomas Christians. So the St. Thomas tradition, when we say St. Thomas tradition, it was a way of life, the faith and practice that was in the Malankara church up to the arrival of Portuguese. So when I use the St. Thomas tradition, it was a tradition. It was a way of life. It was some faith and practices that were in currency during the pre-Portuguese period. So we will go through the St. Thomas tradition. Our history book, that means the history book you have made in connection with the 80th anniversary, all these things are mentioned there. So I'm not taking too much time explaining these things. It was given in the first pages of our history that was compiled by our church. So I will quickly mention. St. Thomas believed to be arrived in Malangara. Malangara derived from Malyangara. Malyangara is the ancient name of Krayanganur. Again, Krayanganur is Malayalam is Kodungalur, where St. Thomas landed in 1852. There is no historical evidence to prove that St. Thomas came in Kodungalur in AD 52. It's a tradition. It may be a myth, but a group of Christians, a community strongly believe that this tradition, and we have no authority to question that authority. That was cherished by Christians today, and that has been cherished by St. Thomas Christians all the time. Okay, he believed, St. Thomas founded 7 churches. In the beginning of the class, I said it is not he is building churches with bricks or like that. Simply he converted Christians and formed them as community. When maybe a building was there, may not be a building. So when we say, when we are telling that St. Thomas founded 7 churches, that does not mean that he built 7 church building. It's not like that. It is 7 communities. Those communities are still there. So where are those communities? Malangara, Chavakat, Paravur, Gokamangalam, Koilon, Neranam, and Nelakel. Still the communities are there, and there are churches are there in the name of St. Thomas. Then the first converts might be Jews. The first converts might be Jews. Why we are came to the conclusion that the first converts might be Jews? In 190, Pandanius came to this part of Kerala, and he found the copy of the Gospel of St. Matthew in Hebrew. He found in AD 190 a copy of Gospel of St. Matthew in Hebrew. Why it is in Hebrew? It is for the use of Jews. That is why he brought this copy of the Bible in Hebrew. That was the conclusion came by the most of the historians. So we can say that the first converts might be Jews. Subsequently, natives were converted. The Brahmins and other people are also added to this the new community. So Eusebius, the historian, recorded that in AD 189, Pandanius, a scholar from Alexandria, visited India and took with him a copy of the Gospel of St. Matthew written in Hebrew. This Hebrew text was preserved. Most of the Christians, historians believe that to read for the Jewish Christians, converted Jewish Christians. Then another evidence of the existence of Christians in India is Bishop John, Bishop of Persia in India, he attended the Council of Nicaea, and he also signed like this in the decisions of the council. His signature was there. He was signed on behalf of Persia, the churches of Persia and India. And all the more important is a strong tradition existed in the Christian community about the apostolic activity of St. Thomas in native songs, Ramban Pata, Villadian Pata, then Margangali Pata. All these songs contain the arrival of St. Thomas. He was founding 7 churches. All those events are narrated in these native songs. These songs, unfortunately, are written maybe in the 14th or 15th centuries. When we research into the language, it was the creation of 15th or 16th centuries. Anyway, the songs was there. So these are the things about St. Thomas. So into this St. Thomas community or St. Thomas Christians, 5 streams flowed into the Malangara Church, Malangara Marthoma Church. 5 streams. You think about a river that starts from St. Thomas, it is flowing. 5 streams that flow into the Malangara Church. First is 4th century onwards through East Syrian Church. 15th century onwards, the Roman Catholic Church. After Kunangros, through the Jacobites. From 19th century onwards, the Anglicans or Protestants or Church Missionary Society. Okay. So there are evidences from Persian churches and from the stone inscriptions in Kerala that migrations from Persia had taken place so many times. Two historical evidences for 2 evidences are there. The first is under Thomas of Cana, second under Marvin Shabriso. He was a merchant. So first migration was in AD 345. A group of people, 400 people, landed at Kodungalur, the Krayanganur or Malangara, to escape Christian persecution from the Sapar II, a Persian king. So they landed in Kerala. In the beginning, I said why they are coming to Kerala, not to any other country, because through the land, through this trade, these Persian merchants from the Persian merchants, they knew that a Christian community was existed in Kerala. And also in Kerala, Christians are free to propagate their religion or their faith, and they are free to believe their faith. So no persecution in Kerala during this time. That is why these migrations, these Christian migrations had taken place to Kerala. So first such migration is Thomas of Cana, and the descendants of this Thomas of Cana, Kanaya Thomanana, Kanaya Katholikar, Kananaya Yakobakaronda, Kananaya community, they claim the descendants of Thomas of Cana. So another thing, they were honored by King Perumal of Chera kingdom with privileges of high caste people. So they in Kerala, the caste system was there. The low caste were treated as inferior to the high caste. So when these Christian merchants and this Kanaya Thoman arrived there, the king Perumal of Chera kingdom, Cheraman Perumala, he welcomed these Christians and give them honor. Honor is riding on elephant, to use the cloth or the dress of the high caste people. So many things are there. Okay, I am skipping from that. And the second migration has happened under, as I said, the merchant Marvin Shabriso with 2 bishops that are Mar Sapro and Mar Proth. And they settled in Koilon. The king Ayyan Adigal, that was a native king, King Ayyan Adigal of Venad kingdom had given privileges of the high caste to the Tarisapalli, that is a church, Koilon church. The name of the church during that period was Tarisapalli. It members inscribed in copper plates. So copper plates that had given to these Christian migrants is one of the main evidences that Christians existed in Kerala. 3 copper plates are still available. 3 copper plates with the Orthodox Seminary and 2 with the Marthoma Church. If you go to the Marthoma Church, the Pulatin, it was kept there. If you ask, they will show you that copper plates. So the copper plates, the presence of copper plates and the inscriptions show that Christianity existed in Kerala. Migrations were there. And another evidence is this Persian crosses. This is our history book. The picture of crosses are given there. Okay, a cross is there. A dove is descending. That is the Holy Spirit. Cross is there. A dove is descending upon the cross. No, that is the Persian cross. This is a Persian cross. So many of Kerala churches, especially in Kottayam, Cheriyapalli, these crosses, stone crosses are there. And especially in the cross at Kottayam Veliyapalli, the inscriptions are, you can read an inscription like this now. It was written in Pali and Syriac. Pali is the ancient Persian language. I don't have that translation of that inscription. It is not with me. So you can maybe search on the Google to see what is written in that inscription. Definitely it was evidence that Persians came to India, the Persian Christians, the name of the Persian Christians are there. So the Persian crosses all over the Christian churches in India is one of the evidences that Christianity existed in India and it had a connection with outside world. Then another precious evidence is from the travelers, the visitors who visited India. One of such was that in AD 522, Cosmos Indicopletus, he visited South India, and this is the extract. So Christian topography by Cosmos Indicopletus, that was the book he written after his, he's a visitor traveler. Cosmos visited South India around 522 AD. So I will read. Even in Taprobane, that is the ancient name of today's Sri Lanka or Ceylon, an island further in India, where the Indian Sea is, there is a church of Christians with clergy and a body of believers. But I know not whether there be any Christians in the parts beyond it. The country called Malay, that is Malabar, where the pepper grows. In that time, only Kerala is the place where you can have the pepper, nowhere in the world. So from this account, we can definitely say that he is mentioning a place where pepper grows. Definitely it is Kerala. There is also a church, and at another place called Kalyana. Some people say that it is near Bombay, and there some people say it is Koilan. No? There is moreover a bishop who is appointed from Persia. So in this extract, we can assume that Christians were already in Kerala during this time, that is AD 522. The presence of Persian Christians were also there. Okay, so in conclusion, we are coming to this conclusion. Life of Malankara Church. Life of Malankara Church during the pre-Portuguese period. When we go through other classes, you should always remember these things in your mind. When some people questions the validity of Marthoma Church as a church, an indigenous church, you should always be reminded of what are the points I am giving you now. One, the church was relatively free of the control of the hierarchy and was indigenous in structure. Hierarchy means there is no, even though bishops came from visited Kerala, they have no authority over the St. Thomas Christians in Kerala. They are coming to consecrate churches, ordain priest, maybe they do baptism, only like that, no? They have no authority over the St. Thomas Christians during that time. That is why relatively free of the control of the hierarchy and was indigenous in structure. Indigenous means, in ancient Kerala, the churches were built according to the Kerala style. If you visit the old ancient Syrian churches, it's almost looked like a temple. The temple architecture as well as the Christian church's shape is almost the same. And also the houses we built, there is no difference between a Hindu house and a Christian house. That means there is no clash of culture. It was free of those clashes. And from the dress, from the appearance of a person, it is very difficult to distinguish Christians from non-Christians. Kudumi, the tuft, the Hindu men used to have tuft, kudumi over the head. See, the Christians as well as the Hindus at that time, I'm talking about during the pre-Portuguese, they all had this kudumi, tuft. The only difference is that on the top of the tuft, a cross will be there. Normally, the Christians used to put a cross over that kudumi or the tuft. In that way, you can distinguish a Christian from a Hindu. Very negligible differences are there. That means it was, that is why I said that it was rooted in the Indian soil. There is no clash of culture. We have already, the first converts were from the Jewish community. The discovery of the Gospel of Matthew in Hebrew character suggests that the earlier converts or the earlier Christians were the Jewish converts. Then, Apostle Thomas or his successors established not a Syrian church, but a church in continuity with the early church. Early church means Jesus community, the Jesus community. The church that we say in the Holy Bible, Acts of Apostles. So Apostle Thomas and the successors means those who came through the connection with the Persians, not established a Syrian church, but a church in continuity with the early church. How can you know that? When the Portuguese came and they are talking about the Roman Catholic faith, and they asked them to make some changes of the faith and practices. All that time, the St. Thomas Christians said that in the Malayalam, we have a Thoma Marga. Thoma Marga means Thomas gave a way of worship. Thoma Marga na Malayalam. We follow the Thoma Marga. Njangal Thoma Marga avalambikkkunnavara. And we don't know what is that Thoma Marga. It may be there with in the oral tradition, as I said, families leader Alexander Meneses. So this strong consciousness, awareness was there that Thomas gave a way of worship more or less adapted to local needs. We'll come later to that. More or less adapted to local needs. Then another important, they lived in the same socio-cultural life of their native brethren. You cannot distinguish a Christian from a non-Christian. The culture is the same. Dress is the same. Dress code is the same. Maybe the food habit is the same. The architecture of the church and the temple is the same. So there is a socio-cultural, the same socio-cultural life is there. Now it is gone. In India, no, it has undermined. And I'm not blaming the Christians alone. There are so many socio-cultural factors that happened in India during all these days. So there was a very cordial relationship among the Indian Christians or the Indian people at that time. But it was all undermined, unfortunately. So during this time, we can see all these things. Then The Christians of this period were not forced to abandon their native identity in order to be a disciple of Christ. ക്രിസ്ത്യാനിയായതുകൊണ്ട് ഉടനെ തലമുടി വെട്ടി വെച്ച് കുടുമി മാറ്റേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ലായിരുന്നു. അവനുടുക്കുന്ന മുണ്ട് മാറ്റേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. നോ നീഡ് ടു ചേഞ്ച് ദ ഡ്രസ്. പിന്നീട് അതെല്ലാം വരുന്നത്. സോ Christians were not forced to abandon their native identity in order to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. They neither adhered to the faith and doctrines of any other churches nor dependent upon any church. They followed the Thoma Marga, the way that taught by Thomas. So what is that way of Thomas? So I have listed those things are there. Okay, faith and doctrines of the church. The church also involved its own indigenous leadership. The Persian bishops used to look after the spiritual needs of the Mar Thoma church. For the administrative thing, Christians used to elect a Jadiki Kartavyan. Jadi means community. Kartavyan means leader. Kartavyan Jena. From the family of Pagalomatram family. That was a traditional custom that was in Kerala during the pre-Portuguese period. These Pagalomatram, നമ്മളിപ്പം കാലം ചെയ്ത തിരുമേനിയൊക്കെ ഈ പകലോമറ്റം ഫാമിലിപ്പെട്ട ആളാണ്, ജോസഫ് മാർ തോമ. So the Christians used to elect a Jadiki Kartavyan from the family of Pagalomatram family to represent Christian community in political, economic and social matters. He wielded the authority over the entire Christian community. ഇന്നത്തെ മാർത്തോമ മെത്രാപ്പോലിത്ത പോലെ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ദേവലോകത്തെ കാതോലിക്ക ബാവയെ പോലെ കോതമംഗലത്തുള്ള ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ബാവയെ പോലെ പകരമായിട്ടുള്ള ആളായിരുന്നു ജാതിക്ക് കർത്തവ്യൻ. He was a local leader. There was no bishop at that time. The bishops, those came from Persia, did not have any control or administrative power over the St. Thomas Christians during that time. സോമനി അടുത്ത സ്ലൈഡ് കാണിച്ചേ. ഓക്കെ, ചില കാര്യങ്ങൾ സോമനി ഞാൻ പുറകോട്ട് ഒന്ന് മാറ്റിക്ക്, ഒന്നും വിട്ടുപോകുന്ന സംശയം. ഒന്ന് പുറകോട്ട് മാറ്റിക്ക്, ഒന്നുകൂടെ പുറകോട്ട് മാറ്റിക്ക്. ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, ഒന്ന് മുന്നോട്ട് വിട്ടേ. നോട്ട് ദിസ് വൺ, ഏറ്റവും ലാസ്റ്റിലോട്ട് തന്നെ പോകും. ഓക്കെ, അതോടെ കിടക്കാം. So I will read something to you. I said that the Thoma Marga or the doctrines that were in practice during the pre-Portuguese period are these. They rejected the doctrine of transubstantiation. Transubstantiation means changing of the nature of the elements. That means when you in the Holy Kurbana, some of the churches believe that the bread becomes flesh and the wine becomes blood. That is transubstantiation. There is no such doctrine during this pre-Portuguese period. Then they condemn the adoration of images. You cannot see any images in the Christian churches during the pre-Portuguese period. It was introduced, imposed by the Diamber Synod. We will come to that. They had no knowledge of the intercession of saints as well as masses and prayers for the dead. മധ്യസ്ഥന്മാരില്ലായിരുന്നു. മരിച്ചവർക്ക് വേണ്ടിയോ മരിച്ചവരുടെയുള്ള പ്രാർത്ഥനകളോ ഈ പ്രീ പോർട്ടുഗീസ് പീരീഡിലില്ല. Then they had no extreme unction. അന്ത്യകൂദാശ എന്ന് പറയും. Unction is തൈലാഭിഷേകം, anointing with oil, with a moron or scythe. They had no extreme unction. That means during if a person is at the deathbed, it is not given as an extreme unction. Then for all questions of doctrine, they took the authority of the scripture as decisive. Somebody മാറ്റല്ലേ? Somebody ഒരു സ്ലൈഡ് വെച്ച് നമുക്ക് നിർത്താം. Yeah. Okay. So It was questioned. Next class, we are going to see how this autonomy, this indigenous nature was questioned by the Portuguese people and the subsequent connections with the Marthoma Church. The people, the St. Thomas Christians reacted with two movements. Two movements emerged in the Marthoma Church or the Malankara Church to resist whenever the identity of the Marthoma Church, whenever its autonomy was questioned. Two things happened. One is in AD 653 to resist the imposition of Roman doctrines upon the church and from the and to have independence from foreign control. So the autonomy was expressed in Kunanguri's oath. The second is Reformation movement initiated by Abraham Malpan and others to regain the faith and practice of the St. Thomas Christians and its autonomy as the Indian Church. So the Reformation of Abraham Malpan was going back to the sources. Actually, the Marthoma Church is going back to the pre-Portuguese period. What were there, we accepted all those things, and we will continue with the lecture, and I will explain those events in the next classes. Okay, any question? Any clarification? You're free to ask questions.